First of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvain Tellier, and on behalf of my colleague Salim and XRM Vision, and myself, of course, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this webinar about customer service. Um, could you change the slide, please, Salim?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the agenda for today. And first of all, we're going to introduce ourselves, Salim and myself. And we're going to talk about the objective of today's webinar. After that, we're going to talk about case management in the current situation. We're going to also talk about case management with Microsoft Dynamics 365. The module is called Customer Service. And from there, we're going to also give you a demonstration on the platform. And after that, we're going to talk about how to implement that type of solution in 5 easy steps. And at the end, we're going to let you ask us questions. But of course, if you have questions during the presentation or the demonstration, feel free to ask us any question. I would suggest to use the chat functionality to do so. If you're not able, you can probably just ask us to open your mic. And if some people prefer to ask questions in French, feel free also to do so. Next slide, please. Okay, then it's time to introduce ourselves. Yeah, here's a disclaimer. Of course, my boss built this presentation when I was not on vacation, but I was, let's say, too busy to do it. So be careful. Maybe there's going to be some surprises. Here's one of those surprises, of course. Yes, my name is Sylvain Tellier, but it's not me. Could you maybe go to the next slide? That's better, way better. I am a senior account manager, but that's not that very senior. Yes, indeed, I have more than 30 years of experience in IT. I work for software manufacturers, also for hardware manufacturers, and I work also for business partners such as XRM Vision. And no, I never sold electric typewriters. At least my boss put electric beside typewriter. It's not too bad. Okay, I'm going to let Salim continue and introduce himself, and I'll talk to you later on this afternoon. Thanks, Salim.
All right, thanks, Sylvain. Hopefully, there's not going to be a lot more surprises like that.
I hope.
So my name is Salim Adamon. I'm a business solutions director here at XRM Vision. Over 10 years working with Dynamics 365, CRM. Started at version 3 in 2008, so it's been a while. I've held a bunch of different roles, so I have a lot of hands-on experience with the projects and over 100 implementations. And so this is actually how we were able to come up with this 5 steps to build a customer service platform with Dynamics 365 today. So I'm going to be running most of the show, and I think Sylvain is going to come back towards the end there to talk about more of our offering and how we can help put that kind of solution in place. I want to start with the objectives. So by the end of the webinar today, there's 4 things that we want to make sure you remember and that you take away, and that we'll consider the webinar a success. The first thing is we want to understand, make sure you get an understanding as to why case management solutions are really important now in the context of COVID-19. We also want to talk about what Microsoft can offer and how they're helping people that are impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Potential for your organizations, of course, with the Dynamics 365 platform, and the 5 steps for a successful implementation. So these are the 4 elements that we want you to take away. If at the end of the webinar you have an understanding of all those components, then this will be a success. So let's start with that. So let's talk about case management in a changing world, really, and why we see it as really important and also strategic for now and for the future. Case management. I want to start by just terminology because we might be using different terms. And for case management, sometimes you will hear incident management, requests, customer support, customer service, case management. There's a bunch of different terms. And we just want to make sure, regardless of the term that I might end up using today, We want to make sure everybody is on the same page. A case or a request is somebody is asking for a problem to be solved or for help to do something, and we want to be able to take that request and to take it to a resolution, regardless of the type of issue or case or incidents that it is. So I just want to make sure we have a broad and common understanding of what we mean by case. Like, in case I use different terms to talk about it, just so we're all on the same page here. Um, and so when we talk about case or incident management, why do we think it's important? There's a few things, right? So in today's world with COVID-19, what we see is two things, right? The workplaces are virtualized. People are working from home. So what does that do? It creates a lot of requests, people having to do things differently, not being close to the people that they ask questions to. You don't have your HR people right next to you if you have questions for them. You don't have your IT support right next to you if you have questions for them. So you need to reach out to them in a different way. Daily activities are also virtualized. By daily activities, we can think of going to the bank, right? So we recently had here to renew a mortgage, and we didn't even go to the bank. Everything was done virtually. So a lot of those things that you used to do by going into places, whether you were going to university, trying to register for a new class, something of that nature, well, you do everything now online and by using different tools and stuff that you really weren't doing before. So things are really changing. And how does that affect the number of requests? Well, our feeling is that it is greatly affected, right? So we have people that are going to have more questions because they now have to do things in a way that they didn't do it before, and they also might have to ask questions in ways that using channels that are different, right? So now you used to go into a place physically, now you have to use the phone, you have to email, you have to go on a portal to create requests, you have to chat with people online. So these are all things that are new. And so, of course, not everybody is equipped to handle that, and not everybody is also has the ability to quickly turn around what they have today into something that's modern and allows to manage the volume of requests that's going to come in. So the challenges for organizations today, you have to start fast. You have to build something quickly because your number of support requests are going to increase. If you are a bank today and all of your activities all of a sudden are virtualized, how do you make sure you have a system in place that can easily handle your requests, but also be implemented fast? This is really critical. There's a constraint of time to be up and running. So you have to identify your new ways of supporting your employees or your customers, depending on your type of business. And that means you have to put in place the tools to support your cases and incidents. Again, regardless of what your type of cases or incidents or requests are, you have to make sure you have the right processes in place to be able to take those requests and process them. And that has to happen now. So there is no luxury of waiting and say, we have a roadmap for a year and a half. Uh, people are needing for your services now, and you need to serve them, right? So this is one of the key challenges that we see for organizations right now. And so how can Dynamics 365 for customer service help? This is what we want to dive into. And before I dive too deep, I want to talk about Microsoft's engagement in the time of COVID-19, right? So Microsoft has really decided to help companies that are impacted by the pandemic. And the idea here is to help support center answer an unprecedented amount of demand, right? So just a lot of cases that are coming in, a lot more than ever before. And how do you make sure your company is equipped to handle the load successfully? Microsoft is offering to use the Dynamics 365 for customer service application for up to 6 months at no charge. There are, of course, qualifying criteria. Your organization has to be impacted by COVID-19 in some way. And then you have the ability to onboard. The process is relatively simple working with Microsoft. And with that, with Dynamics 365 for customer service, you also get remote assist and digital messaging. Remote assist is the application that you can use if you want to do remote troubleshooting. So for example, you have a plumber that goes somewhere or that cannot go to your place, and maybe he can share a screen with you and try and guide you through what you're doing by looking at your installation through your phone. right? So that's one of the possibilities with remote assist, and digital messaging being the ability to interact within chat, whether it's a custom chat on a website, whether it's Facebook chat, all connected to Dynamics 365 for customer service. Yeah, so these are some of the nice add-ons that are coming with the Dynamics 365 for customer service platform, and part of the offering from Microsoft at no charge for up to 6 months to be able to navigate the current event and current crisis. So with that, let's talk about Dynamics 365 for customer service a little bit more. Talk about the foundation, what's under the hood, what does the application do, how can it be leveraged, and after that, we'll go into more of a demonstration mode. So there are a bunch of different tools and components to the customer service module. Of course, case management. So the case information, the customer or individuals that are involved in the case that are requesting help, the description of that case and everything that has to do with it, the ability to connect the case to a service level agreement. So if you have constraint in terms of the number of hours that you have to respond to the case, then you can configure that and use that type of functionality. Knowledge base, somebody is asking for a question or for a procedure. If you have the ability to use a procedure that's already written in your system and just share that as a response to the inquiry, then that gives you a lot of added value and allows you to respond to the case a lot faster. So that's the knowledge base module. The queues, if you have multiple departments. So for example, if you have an HR department that has to respond to requests, if you have an IT support desk that have to respond to requests, you can have different queues for each of the department, and they will get their incoming information. They will process them from their queue without having to look at the noise coming from all of the other queues that are in the system. I'll also briefly talk about portal and digital messages and chatbots. The two tiles on the bottom right here. Portals obviously being a web portal, a website that allows people to connect to your organization and have the ability to create a case directly from there, and you receive it from your end as in your back office system, and you have the ability to process that case. And then the digital messages and the chatbots, of course, make a reference to having the ability to chat with people that are connected onto your website. Chat can be automatically done by a robot, so the chatbot, or by an individual that's sitting in the back office system as well, right? So these are some of the functionalities that are available with the platform, and that you can get if you quickly want to onboard on the customer service platform to be able to add value to your organization and serve your customers in a way that's a little faster and more efficient, of course. And so that takes me to the demo where we want to dive into the application and show you what's under the hood a little bit more. And the scenario that we have is relatively simple. We have somebody who sends an email into a mailbox that is connected to Dynamics 365 as a request. And then we want to show you how that email is received and how it is processed from there. So what are the steps after the email is received to pick it up in the Dynamics platform and to go to a resolution process. So I will go into demonstration mode. A couple of things. So before I start, I am going to send an email to a generic mailbox that I have set up here. So my mailbox is a case processing mailbox. So I'm going to send that over here as we start. And just keep in mind the support request, the process to come into the office 2 days a week. So, right. So you have an employee, let's say, who is sending an email to say, what is the process if I want to start coming back into the office 2 days a week, right? So you're just asking a simple question to, say, your HR person. So you send that email off, and that's it. So now I am going to go into Dynamics 365, and we'll start from there. I go into Dynamics 365 customer service, and over here, as I log in, I just want to give you a brief tour. What do we see? What do we have here? On the left-hand side, we have the navigation. So you'll see the navigation, just go to the home page, all of your different work areas, my work, where you have your dashboard and activities, your customers, you have your services, which we'll spend some time on, the cases and the queues. And there is more here: analytics, knowledge base, devices. If you have devices that are connected to your system and can create cases automatically. And of course, you have additional sections here, which I'm not going to dive into, but what this shows is you can separate logical groups or functional groups of components in the application and make them accessible for your users. Um, so for me here, as I log into the application, I am logging into a dashboard, and it shows me my active cases that I have to work on or that I'm working on. It also shows me my excuse me. It also shows me my resolved cases, draft emails. So there's a bunch of information that it shows. Uh, and excuse me, there's a little incident here. I'll just give me 1 second. Apologies. All right, this is what happens when you're working from home. And so here, uh, I also have the ability to do some filtering. So if I want to look at cases based on the priorities, if I want to prioritize them, if I want to look at the case by origins, I can do that. And I can also look for the companies that have more cases created in the system. I have the ability to do a bunch of filtering here. And so this is the landing page. And if I go to the queues, if you remember, I just sent myself an email from a mailbox. And so the email is gonna come into Dynamics 365. So if I look for the queues here, you'll see that I was mentioning earlier, you have the ability to have multiple queues, right? So a queue for general requests here, but I could have multiple queues. So a queue, for example, for customer service, for IT services, for HR services, etc. And so in my case, I'm only going to be using this one here. And what you can see is I have an email that came in just now, 3:15. So when I sent it, and it came into the queue, and that's an email. You'll see there's a bunch of different record types in the queue, right? So the phone call, a case, an email. In my case, I'm going to be working with an email. Again, from the queue, I have to pick it up. So I'll select it, I'll pick it because I don't want to remove it from the queue. It's one of the items available to work on. Now I'm going to work on it. Yes. And now if I go to the items that I'm working on, it should be, oh, and then of course I removed it from the queue. So let me just look for it again. The demo gods are working not with me. So I'll just look for the email that was just received, right? So I just took that email off of the queue, so I should have opened it. Now, this is the email, right? So you can see the content is pretty boring. I have the same subject. There is the source here, which is a contact that exists in the CRM, as you can see here, because it was recognized. It's a contact, and the content is just what I had in the email. So there's nothing really interesting here in particular. But what I want to show is from that email, I have the ability to convert it to a case. So I click on here, and I'll select the subject. In my case, I'll say it's just a request for information, open a new case, and I'm converting that. So now the expectation is I'm going to have a case that will be created from that email. So it will bring in some of the information from the email directly onto the case. So this is what the case looked like. You can see on the top here, we have a business process bar that shows the different steps, right? So the first step is to identify the people that are involved in the case. In here, it's already done because we know the person, because it's already an email that we recognize. And then the next steps are the research and the resolution, right? So we have all the steps that are in there if you want to be able to have a standardized way of resolving issues or cases. And then there's simple information as it relates to the case. So the support request, so the case title came in from the subject of the email. I can change that if I want to. And then I have a bunch of additional information that I can add. If there was a product, for example, that I was writing about, the product would be here, and I can add some description here explaining what the case is and what the issue is. In here, what you have is the email, right? So we had the email coming in. So the email is automatically attached to the case. So that way there's a relationship between the two, and I know what the source of my case is. So as I do that, I'm done with the identification process. I'm able to say, I already have a customer. I don't need to find a contact because it's already the customer, and I go to the next stage, which is the research. Assigned to others, in that case, I'm just gonna keep it assigned to me. So I'll work on the case. And what I'll do is I'll email the person to say, I have received your case, and now I'm going to start working on it, right? So I'll do an email from here. And what you see from the timeline is it pops up an email message record. There is a from record, which is me. In that case, I just want it to be anonymous because I don't want people to send emails to me directly. So I make sure I send the email from the queue that received the email. And I can add any subject here, request received. And I can add some text here. A few things that are interesting here. First one is the ability to insert a template. So if you have some standard responses that you want to put in when you get a message and you want to respond to it, you can do that here by clicking on Insert Template. And then as we do that, the system is going to propose to me the templates that are available in the system. So these would be pre-configured templates that are existing in the system that you would create or somebody would create. And then you would just select the template from here based on the language, English or French and whatnot. And you would apply the template. This will put in the text. Let's not replace the subject. It will put in the text coming from that template directly in here. So that way you don't even have to type anything. There's also the ability to insert signatures. So if you have standard signatures that you want to be anonymous, let's say you want to have a standard signature for a customer service department, then you can have that automatically inserted also by using the insert signature button here. The last piece that I like in the email is the ability to follow the email. So what following means is it will track when the email is received by the recipient. It will also track when it's open, the amount of time that it's open. If it has link, it will track when the links are clicked. And also if it has attachments, it will track when the attachments are downloaded and are open. So this is pretty cool. Gives you the ability to send the email later. So if you want to defer the email being sent, you can do that. And you can also set a follow-up. This is for cases where, for example, you have an email that you send and you want to make sure there's a follow-up within a couple of days. If you haven't gotten a response, then you can set up a reminder for yourself to do that. So I'll do that here and I'll send that email. It's going to go. And if I come out here and I do a refresh on the timeline, what you'll see is I have the incoming email that came in, and this is the outgoing email that I decided I was going to pick up the case. So I sent a message without coming out of the CRM. That's the first piece. The other piece is the ability to work with knowledge-based articles, right? So on the right-hand side, I have recent cases for the same person. Now I want to go look at knowledge articles. So let's say for this request in particular, what is the process to come into the office 2 days a week, right? Because now maybe there's a specific process and we want to make sure there isn't too many people in the office and whatnot. I can go search for that information. If there's a knowledge-based article that's already defining the process to do that. Of course, now I don't have anything particularly relevant, but I just want to show what the process would look like. Because you would see here all of the different articles that exist. So you can click on the button here to open them up. And then it'll give you all the different procedures and everything. So you would identify that this is the right article that you're looking for. And so there's a couple of things you can do with it in this case here. You can simply link it to the case and say, this is the article that I've used to resolve the case. And you can also send it to the recipient, right? So you can say, this is the procedure that you need to follow to come into the office. Very similar to what we saw earlier. So it brings in the email record. You see that I have a from and to, so the to is also the person involved in the case. The content automatically is the content of the knowledge base article. The related record is the case that I'm working on. And if I hit send, that is going to go to the recipient. And again, here you see that I now have two outgoing messages. One that came that I sent earlier using a template. The second where I sent by clicking on the button to share the knowledge base article. So these are very simple functionalities. Think of today, if you have issues that are coming in and you want to resolve them using information that's already on hand. Think of how easy it is to reach out to people and respond to their requests by using a system like this. The other thing that you could do, if you have multiple people that need to take action to help resolve the case, you can use the tasks or the phone calls or the appointments. So if we use tasks, for example, I can create a task and assign the task to someone else. So let's say, do I have Sylvain here? I do not. I have Jean-Francois, for example. Explore case resolution. I want to say to my colleague, you need to do this for me, and I'll give you a deadline of, let's say, next Monday, and I'll save and close that. So now Jean-Francois will receive a request in his Outlook with a new task that was created by me for him to be able to do a specific job. So when he receives that, he will open up the case and he will be able to see everything that I have around the case. So basic information, the source email, etc. And he might be able to take an action to help me resolve the case if I don't have the information or the knowledge to be able to resolve it myself. So that's one of the key features here. So I've done it with the task, of course, here, but I could have also created an appointment so I can invite, for example, somebody from level 2 support with the customer and myself, a bunch of things that you can think of. If you've consumed some level of technical support, they typically have systems that resembles that they use in the background. Quickly, before I move out from here, I want to point out the AI that we have embedded here, the intelligence. So the couple of emails that I just sent, I have notes here that says it was sent now and last opened also by the recipient, right? So because it needs to tell me when I sent it. It also needs to tell me when the person opened it the last time. So this is a pretty cool feature because you can see that people have looked at your content, so they're aware that you're working and they're aware they're consuming your content. So it allows you to see that there's some level of interaction that works and that's valid here. The last step, of course, after you've done whatever you need to do to resolve the case is to go to the next stage, which is resolution. And once you finish it, you resolve your case. And in your case, in your resolution, you have the ability to tell, to give comments on what you use to resolve, and also the duration. There is some additional functionalities around here. You could make this more complex or simplify it depending on whether you use any of this or not, and you can close your case. One thing I want to point out here, you see that I have the case completed in 8 minutes. And it also tracks the amount of time spent at each stage. So if you want to go for statistics at the end and look at more details around where do you spend more time and is there any room for improvements, these are things that you can think of for the long term or for the midterm after you've done your initial implementation. But you just need to know that the information is already being tracked and you don't have to do anything to track it. Speaking of statistics, I want to show just a quick report here, which is a case summary report. In that case, if you are familiar with Power BI, this is a pre-built Power BI report that brings you a bunch of intelligent information about your own cases and what your system looks like. So your incoming cases, active cases, resolutions, etc. You have the ability to do filtering based on time, based on specific queue, based on specific individual case priority, etc. And so you get this without doing anything, right? It's already out in the system, and without any customization, you get that type of information, and you are able to understand what's happening in your business, and you're able to be more productive in terms of understanding how you need to process your cases for your customer service department. So let me check if I don't have any questions here. Looks like we're good. All right. So that was a relatively simple demo, but we wanted to kind of show you, give you an idea of what Dynamics 365 looked like. And so now we're going to continue and talk about what are the 5 steps to build a system in less than a week. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A area there. We'll take a look at them and try and get your responses. So the 5 steps are really simple, and we'll dive a little deeper in each of those. The discovery, pretty important. Analysis, configuration, of course, and then training, go live, and fine tuning. So these are the 5 key steps that we see. And for each of them, I want to just dive a little deeper to tell you what our vision is and how we see each of these different steps there. Excuse me. So the discovery is really a functional overview. Before you install an application, you need to go and understand what's under the hood, right? So what are the installation mode? Is it cloud? Is it on premise? What are some of the prerequisite? Office 365, Exchange Online for email integration, SharePoint integration, OneNote, etc. You need to go and look at it and understand what's around the application that you're looking to implement. What are the restrictions, constraints, and is it something that's going to work for you? Because you don't want to spend more time, trying to build a proof of concept and everything if you haven't already understood what are all the requirements that are needed to put that system in place. Second piece is the analysis. So here it's more the workshops to understand what you need to do, what the application does, is there a feed gap, and what do I need to do in order to have a solution that works for me, right? So typically we ask people to look at who is going to be consuming the application, right? So the people that are going to make the requests, the people that are going to process them, how they're going to be, how the requests are going to be made, and how they're going to be processed, etc. So we look at that, and this usually gives us the answer in terms of feed gap. This is what the application does. These are the changes that we need to make, or this is just the plug and play that we need to put in place. That helps you identify the modules that you require. So earlier when I had the tiles with all the different application modules, I talked about SLAs, I talked about queues, portals, and all of that. This is the idea here in the analysis, to go and identify which of these tiles are relevant for you and that you need to put in place. We estimate that effort to be about 1 day. So typically for something that's simple, if you want to get started really quickly. And when we go into configuration, this is where it takes a lot more time, right? So you have to deploy the environment. You have to do your case management, which is configuring your case management, adding fields that are relevant for you, removing fields that you don't need, activities management, making sure your emails are set up properly. Do you have email templates that you need to put in place, tasks that you need to integrate without looking at all those things. The queues, create the queues, connect them to Exchange, create your dashboards if there are specific KPIs that you need to look for, and your security, of course, who has access to what in the application, management level, customer service representative level. So you have to go in there and make sure all these configurations are done properly. There's a lot out of the box that you can leverage. You can configure and customize a little bit more depending on what you need to do. And then we estimate that to be between 2 and 4 days, depending on how complex your implementation is. And keep in mind, we're talking about a rapid implementation for customer service here. Next phase, training and go live. Super user training. This is our key recommendation is we train super users. They become owners of the system. It becomes something that they can manage themselves without the intervention of a partner, and then they can train the end users themselves and work on the go live. Takes usually about a day, depending on the complexity again. And of course, fine tuning, which is something that we look to do post utilization, right? So people have started to use the application. They've started to see areas that can be improved. They've started to see things that work well, things that don't work as well. And so they can help identify quick wins, things that we can change quickly and make the application even better, and also define a roadmap for the mid to long term type of vision there. So the idea is you do the initial 4 steps quickly, and so that can take you a week or two, and then you come back a few weeks later when people have started to use the application, and you look for some of these additional things that you can put in there to make the application even more useful after people have started to use it. Very important here, if you want to have success with that, there's a few advices that we give. The first one would be you need to quickly confirm that you have your basic requirements, right? So uh, we talked about having Office 365 connected to everything. It's cloud. Are you a cloud company? So all those very key things, you have to identify them really quickly, not to lose any time. Your mindset really needs to be keeping it simple, right? So something standardized for everybody that you can share with your organization quickly. You don't want to start having something that's extremely customized. You want something out of the box that you can just put in place and use, make some simple changes. So again, keep it simple. Anything that's not useful, hide it. People will get lost if there's too much noise. So this is really one of the key things that you have to do pretty much every time you put a system like that in place, especially if you do it quickly. Make sure people only see what they need to, and hide everything that you don't need. Um, and of course, crawl, walk, and run approach, right? You don't want to put things that are too complicated. Again, go with the simplest possible approach. Don't do too much automation. We are in a situation where people sometimes had no system at all. You put a customer service application, keep it really, really simple to begin with, and keep the improvements for later. So how do you make that happen? What is the commitment that you have to make if you want that to work? uh, you have to have time to work on the project. It's not going to happen magically because you have a customer service application out of the box, right? You do have to spend time thinking about it. Ask your people questions to make sure they provide you with the information that you need to put the system that they need. Have a power user in charge. So the power user needs to be someone that will be using the application, or that works in the department that will be using the application. Uh, Very important. Focus on the end user's added value, right? A lot of times we think we work with the managers because they're the ones that drives those type of projects, and they look for the data that they need. And so a lot of times the added value becomes lost for the end users, because they see the system as a data entry system to feed information for someone else, as opposed to a system that gives them value. And so this is one of the key things. Think of the people that are going to be using the application, whether it's your internal case workers, whether it's the external people that are going to log the requests. Make sure they are the priority in your approach. How we can help, and we have a formula here that Sylvain will discuss.
Yep. I'm gonna take the control.
There you go.
Okay. Thanks, Salim.
Sure.
Okay. We mentioned earlier that Microsoft has an offer. They offer to you to use some application for free for up to 6 months. We also have an offer for you. So I won't pass through all the steps we're going to offer you because Salim just covered them. But we're going to offer you to help you to implement that type of solution. And here's the step we're going to offer you. First, the functionality, discover native functionality, set up the environment, perform the analysis, configure your Dynamics 365, train your super users. And we also include in that offer some hours for post-implementation support. And as we already mentioned, we think we can implement that type of solution in your organization within a week or maximum 2 weeks. We offer that type of a solution just under $10,000. If one of you is interested by the offer or has questions, my email address is there, sylvain.tellier@xrmvision.com. Feel free to send me an email. I'm going to quickly respond to your question. Or if you would like to have maybe a more customized or private demonstration of the product, we're able also to do that. Now, we talk about the solution, Microsoft a little bit. I'd like to take just 1 or 2 minutes of your time to talk about XRM Vision. Who is XRM Vision? I will not read through the slide, but what I think it's important for you is that in life, we do only 2 things at XRM Vision, but we do it very well. We're providing services around Dynamics 365 CRM. When I say CRM, it includes, of course, sales, but customer service, marketing automation, field services, all the modules include or in that type of platform. We also provide services around the Power Platform of Microsoft. If you don't know the Power Platform, it includes the Power BI tools, tools that can help you to do reporting analysis. It includes also Power Apps. It's a tool that helps you to develop app, rapid development tool. They call it low code or no code application. It includes also the Power Automate. Maybe you know the old name of that application. It's used to be Microsoft Flow. And it's also include the Power Virtual Agents. And that's the only 2 things that we're doing, but we're doing it very well. The company was founded 12 years ago. We talk about around 60 experts that are employees of XRM Vision. We serve more than 150 clients, and we already did more than 400 implementation of CRM solution. And we know very well the platform. We have a lot of experience. I'm sure we implement that type of solution in your industry. Then again, feel free to contact us. We're able to help you, that's for sure. Last thing I'd like to mention about us is that we are a Microsoft partner. We have the gold status level. It's not easy to get that status, to achieve it. It was never easy, but it's becoming more and more difficult. So what it means for you is that among other criteria, it means that we have at least 15 resources with a minimum of 3 certifications each, which is a lot of certification. Again, what it gives you is, it means for you that we have a lot of skills, we're very knowledgeable on that platform, and we have an excellent relationship with Microsoft, which within a project can, of course, be beneficial for you. Okay, now it's time. If you have questions, please feel free to ask your question. You can use the chat, or you can just unmute your mic and ask question. Again, if some of you are more comfortable in French, please feel free to ask your question in French. Any question?
I don't have anything in the Q&A.
Okay. Okay, then. If there is no question, again, on behalf of Salim, XRM Vision, and myself, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Again, feel free to contact us for any question, or if you would like to have maybe a personal demo or private demo, it's going to be a pleasure for us to do so. If you would like to ask question about the offer that we just introduced, please just contact me by email. It's going to be a pleasure. Once again, thank you, everyone, and have a good day.